Hello and welcome to the Practical Maker channel. I'm Haley Graham, and on this channel we talk about sewing, knitting, and making things. Today I'm going to be talking about the Lane pants by Sid Graham. I've seen people making these all over Instagram and YouTube, and I thought I'd see what the hype was about. But before I dove into the pattern, I wanted to make a toile or a muslin to see how they'd fit because I've heard they run fairly large. And I'm someone who doesn't like my pants to be especially wide in the leg. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and in the winter, things get a little bit wet. So I didn't want my pants to be dragging on the ground or picking up snow and dirt. So I made a toile out of some fabric I got at the Textile Center garage sale here in Minneapolis. They do a garage sale couple times a year, and I found this fabric. Unfortunately, it smells like it's been in a basement for too long, and so I thought it would make a great toile. Uh, so since this pattern runs fairly large, I decided to go down a couple sizes from my usual. I typically make a size 10, but in this pattern I made a size 6. And my measurements, just for reference, my hips are 39.5 inches, waist is 30 inches, and inseam is 29 inches. So in case you're wondering, kind of fit and measurements. So here is my toile. I did most of the modifications on this. I didn't put in the elastic, obviously, or the drawstring, since I wasn't going to make this into an actual pant. But I did put on the cargo pockets. So you can see my nice black thread there. And I did learn a few things from the toile. So first of all, the inseam is fairly, or not inseam, the this the rise, I think they call it, the crotch depth is fairly high. It would sit right above my belly button if I made the finalized version as the pattern states, and that's not really how I like my pants to fit. So I decided for the final version, which we'll get into in a minute, to take this down about an inch. Also, the pattern doesn't include any back pockets. This is, as you can see, so I decided that I wanted to put on a back pocket into my final version. I also didn't finish the hems on these. Again, since I wasn't going to be wearing them, I didn't feel it was necessary, but I did on the final version. What else? Oh, the waist is just attached. You attach both sides at the same time as written. And I like my waist seam to be encased. I just think it's a cleaner look, and so I figured I would do that on my final version instead. And then another thing I learned is I don't love how the pockets are written in the pattern. There's a few things I would do differently, just construction wise. So yeah, that's the toile, and here is the final version. I made it in this green fabric from Lakes Makery, and I'm forgetting the kind of fabric this is. It's a cotton, but I'll put on screen a note on the exact brand and fiber content once I find that out. So I obviously added in, let's just start at the top. I added in the elastic in this and the drawstring. I think the drawstring is actually a great addition because as a newer sewist, I tend to not always measure the elastic correctly, and either it's way too tight or way too loose, but the drawstring just helps with that adjustment. Also, as I said, I did encase this. I added a little tag, and I stitched in the ditch. Here you can see on the outside. I did change up the construction of the drawstring. So in the pattern, it has you put right sides together and then sew it and then turn it inside out, but I find that kind of fiddly. And so what I did was I quarter folded it, as you can see there, and then I just top stitched over the top. That way I wasn't messing around with having to turn it inside out at the end. I also drafted a pocket. I had used this on different pants I'd made, and then I top stitched it similarly to how the cargo pockets are top stitched, as we'll see in a minute. I also did some top stitching on the pocket, similar to the cargo pockets, the slash pockets. One thing I did, since I had to take out an inch in this crotch area, I had to do that on the pockets as well because they correspond. They're fairly deep, and so they kind of correspond with the overall rise. But there's still plenty room to get my hand in there, and I don't think it really took anything away from the pockets. I did sew the cargo pockets. So here's the top stitching like the pattern calls for. You can see it's kind of fraying up here because I did a really tight seam allowance and I didn't quite catch it in this fabric. So I think I'll just take a thread and a needle and whip stitch it in. But I did on the pocket kind of encase this, and it was a little bit smoother. I did a trick that I'll see if I can find a link to and post it in the description. And I also top stitched these pleats before I sewed them down. I think it just gives it a little cleaner and crisper look. As far as the leg, I kept the length as written because they are fairly long. And then I just kind of folded it, put them on, folded it under to where I thought would be a good length based on my body. And those are the lane pants. Overall, I really like the pattern. Aside from it being fairly large, I think I could probably even go down to one more size, just to make them slightly less oversized. But I know the oversized look is in, so I'm really happy with them. I'll put in a little bit of footage of me trying these on next. So what do you think? Have you made this pattern before? If so, what alterations did you make? What alterations would you make if you're planning to make this pattern? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for sticking around. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel for more making, sewing, and knitting content. If you're on Instagram, follow along with me at The Practical Maker and TikTok, The Practical Maker 1. Thanks and happy making!